All right, let's talk about swords. You know, from King Arthur's Excalibur to the samurai's katana, some weapons are just legendary. Today, we're going to dive deep into the fire and steel of history to uncover the real secrets behind the world's greatest blades and the incredible cultures that made them.
So, let's just get right to it. The big one. The question that has fueled endless arguments online. The European longsword versus the Japanese katana. Knight against samurai. It's the ultimate matchup, right? Well, if you came here looking for me to declare a simple winner, you might be surprised.
Because the real answer, the one that's actually forged in fire and steel, is so much more complicated. And honestly, it's way more fascinating than just picking a better sword. The truth is, it's going to challenge pretty much everything you think you know about this classic showdown.
Okay, so first things first, we've got to understand the weapons themselves. Let's break down this tale of two very different, very iconic blades.
Now, right off the bat, we hit a huge problem. See, there's no single thing called the longsword or the katana. As weapons expert John Clements loves to point out, both of these swords changed a ton over hundreds of years. They had countless variations, each made for a specific job. So asking which is better is kind of like asking if a pickup truck is better than a sports car. I mean, it totally depends on what you're trying to do, right?
But if we have to generalize a little bit, we can definitely see their different philosophies. The katana, with that beautiful curved, single edge, it's a master slicer. I mean, it is an absolutely specialized tool built for devastating cuts. The longsword, on the other hand, it's the ultimate jack of all trades. That straight, double-edged blade makes it way better for thrusting into gaps in armor, and its big crossguard gives you amazing hand protection. It's just an incredibly versatile weapon for a totally different kind of fight.
And this quote from Clements just nails it. It perfectly captures the whole point. The question isn't which sword is better. The real question is, what problem was this sword built to solve? And that simple shift in thinking changes everything. It moves us from a simple matchup to really understanding the why behind the weapon.
In that context, that why, leads us to the real secret here. Because the answer isn't just in the shape of the blade. It's in the metal itself. The secret is the steel.
So, in medieval Europe, the most common way to make iron was in something called a bloomery furnace. They'd use charcoal for fuel and feed it with bog iron, which, just like it sounds, you could literally dig up from bogs. It was everywhere. The result was this thing called a bloom, basically a spongy, messy lump of iron full of impurities. It wasn't great quality right out of the furnace, but the key is you could make a ton of it.
And here's a look at the technology. As you can see, these bloomery furnaces were pretty simple. They were built from local clay and stone. That accessibility is so important. It meant that smiths could be making iron pretty much anywhere in Europe, which led to a huge quantity of metal being available.
Now, this is what came out of that furnace, a glowing iron bloom. You can just see how porous and uneven it is. It's full of junk called slag. So to get from this spongy mess to a functional sword, a smith had to do an insane amount of work, hammering and folding it over and over, just to get all those impurities out.
Okay, now let's jump over to Japan, where it was a completely different story. Smiths there started with a totally unique material, iron sand. They'd smelt it in a massive, special furnace called a tatara to create what they called tamahagane, or jewel steel. And let me tell you, this process was incredibly difficult and used up a ton of resources, which made the final steel unbelievably precious.
The Japanese smiths then used these amazing, almost artistic techniques to refine it. They would fold the steel over and over on itself, creating thousands of microscopic layers. Then came the magic. They'd coat the blade with a secret recipe of clay, thick on the spine, thin on the edge, before plunging it into water. This created a blade with a crazy hard, razor-sharp edge and a softer, more flexible spine that could absorb impact. Just genius.
But hold on, there was another legendary player on the world stage, wood steel, coming out of India. This was an ultra-high carbon steel made by melting iron and carbon sources together in a sealed clay pot called a crucible. This created a little cake or ingot of steel that had this unique internal structure, and it was traded all across the ancient world.
And when a master smith got their hands on one of those wood ingots and forged it into a blade, this is what you got, the legendary Damascus steel. Now, those incredible swirling patterns, they are not just for decoration. They're actually the physical evidence of the steel's microscopic structure, which gave these blades a combination of hardness and flexibility that seemed almost magical to people at the time.
So it's pretty clear we're not just talking about Japan versus Europe here. This was a global story of incredible innovation. So let's zoom out and take a look at the wider world of legendary blades.
Mastery in sword-making didn't just pop up overnight. I mean, look at this timeline. Toledo in Spain was already famous for its steel way back in the days of the Roman legions. Fast forward to the 13th century, and Solingen in Germany becomes this absolute powerhouse, the city of blades. And it's around the 14th century that the katana as we know it really hits its stride.
And these cities became famous for a reason. Smiths in Toledo perfected this technique of forge welding a hard steel cutting edge around a soft iron core. They called it the soul of iron, and it made their blades incredibly tough. Meanwhile, Solingen became the Detroit of swords through industrial-scale production and really strict quality control. Their guilds protected the name Solingen so fiercely that it basically became a brand name, a mark of quality, kind of like how true champagne can only come from Champagne, France. And this brings us all the way back to that European bloomery steel, the stuff that was plentiful but maybe not top-shelf quality. So what did they do with all of it? Well, they started an arms race. The sheer quantity of available steel allowed for the development of full suits of plate armor. And of course, that meant weaponsmiths had to get creative, developing new tools like warhammers and picks, specifically designed to defeat all that steel.
Okay, so we've looked at the designs, we've gone deep on the steel, we've toured the world, we can finally come back to our original question and really understand a sword's true purpose.
And here it is, the most important takeaway from all of this. Every single sword is a compromise. That's it. You cannot have a blade that is the absolute best at everything. A sword that's designed to be an amazing cutter, like a katana, has to give up some thrusting and guarding ability. A sword designed to be a versatile problem solver, like the longsword, won't be as specialized a slicer.
Clements once again just puts it perfectly. A sword's design is a direct result of its environment. It's an answer to the specific problems its user was going to face. Were they fighting unarmored opponents where a quick, clean cut was everything? Or were they trying to find a tiny gap in a walking tank of a knight, where only a powerful thrust could win the day?
So you see, in the end, the debate was never really about which sword was better. That was always the wrong question to ask. The real question, the one that truly gets to the heart of what makes these weapons so incredible, is this. If a sword is an answer, perfectly engineered to solve a specific set of problems, what was the question it was built to answer? That is what reveals its true genius.